Let me ask you something blunt. Have you ever tried to explain your story, your career, your turning point, your reason for wanting to coach, and watch someone's eyes completely glaze over? You weren't rambling, you weren't wrong, you were just boring. Not because your life doesn't have meaning, but because you didn't cut to the chase. And if you don't learn how to do that, you won't just lose attention, you'll lose clarity, confidence, and clients before you even get started. Here's what happens to a lot of professionals when they try to share their story. They start from the beginning. They try to give context, background, all the steps that led to that thing that matters the most. It makes sense. You've lived a full life, you've had a rich career. You want to be understood, not reduced to a headline. But what you're doing is building a wall between you and the person you're trying to reach. Because while you're walking them through a timeline, they're silently asking themselves, why should I even care? And the longer it takes you to answer that question, the less trust you have, and they're going to basically tune out. I've watched brilliant, compassionate, deeply qualified people try to explain their coaching business and end up sounding like they're apologizing. They start with, well, I've had a bit of an unusual career, or it's kind of a long story, or I didn't plan to do this, but, and by the time they get to the actual insight, the shift, the message, the part that matters, the other person is already disengaged. This isn't just a storytelling issue, it's actually a clarity issue. If you can't cut to the part of your story that changes people, you won't know what you're offering, and they're not going to care. You'll hesitate when someone asks what you do. You'll water down your message. You'll spend months tweaking your website instead of building something real. And worst of all, you'll start to believe the lie that you don't have what it takes to be a coach. Now, this confusion is not your fault. Most of us were trained to explain ourselves through resumes, not resonance. We're used to proving our worth by describing everything we've done, our degrees, our job titles, our responsibilities, not the truth of what we've lived through and learned. So when we try to build a coaching business, we fall back on explaining. We simply try to walk people through our whole path, hoping that they're going to understand it, that they're going to see how it all adds up. But that's not how clarity works. That's not how stories work. And that's definitely not how trust works. No one cares about your backstory unless it earns their attention. And attention comes from tension, from the moment something changes. Think about every great story you've ever been hooked by. It didn't start with context. It started with a crisis. The job fell apart, the relationship ended, the burnout finally broke you. You had a realization you couldn't ignore. That's where your story lives. That's what you coach from. That's what people want to hear. But if you can't cut to that, you're forcing your audience to wait, and truthfully, most of them won't. So here's the shift. Instead of explaining your story, start where it turns. Start with the moment that hurt, that shocked, that woke you up, or made you question everything. That's where your coaching actually should begin, because that's where you become someone who could guide others through the same thing that they're going through. You don't need to impress people with everything you've done. You need to move them with what you've lived through. Your turning point is your credibility. Your insight is your framework. Your clarity starts when you stop explaining and start connecting. Now, if this is landing and you want help turning your experience into a coaching business, the link to the Clarity Toolkit is just below. It'll give you a custom plan based upon your story that you've lived. So let's get into the 3-step plan. First, cut to the moment that changed everything. Stop starting at the beginning. Take us to the tension, the moment you couldn't unsee. Maybe you realized that your career that you built was never yours to begin with. Maybe you sat in your car after another pointless meeting and thought, I cannot do this for another 10 years. That's where the clarity begins. One of the most powerful ways I've seen this done is with the line, so basically what happened was, and then just say it plainly. No buildup, no justification, just the raw hinge of your story. That's the part your future clients will feel in their gut because they've lived their own version of just that. Then cut to the emotion. Don't sanitize the story. Coaching isn't about being perfect, it's about being real. You don't need to have it all figured out, but you do need to show that you've felt what your clients are currently feeling right now. Were you burned out and ashamed to admit it? Were you successful on paper, but secretly hollow inside? Did you feel like you were wasting your potential and had no idea how to change it? Those emotions are not distractions. They are the bridge. Because when someone hears their hidden feelings spoken out loud, they start to listen, and they listen differently. When you name your past pain, you unlock your present power. That I'm sure of. Finally, cut to the meaning. Now that you've brought us to the turning point and the emotion, show us what changed in you. What did you see differently? What did you start to believe about yourself, your path, or what even really matters to you now? This is where your offer is born. That realization, I don't need to keep proving myself, or I want to help people feel seen the way I never did. That becomes the anchor of your coaching business. You don't have to have a niche yet, but you do need to know what you stand for. Because once you can name the meaning behind your turning point, you can build a message that attracts the right people and repels the wrong ones. Now, if you're serious about building a coaching business that fits your life, grab the Clarity Toolkit below. It'll show you exactly what you could coach, who it's for, and how to structure it in a way that will not create overwhelm. If you don't learn how to cut to the chase, here's what happens. You'll keep trying to explain your way into clarity and confuse yourself in the process. You'll write posts that get polite likes, but no real clients. You'll avoid sales calls because you don't know what to say when you're on them, and you'll spend hours reworking your about page instead of building something people can actually feel. And slowly, the idea of becoming a coach will fade into maybe someday. But if you do learn this, if you start telling the truth of your story from the moment it matters, everything will begin to open up. People will lean in. You'll find the words that actually resonate. You'll stop trying to prove yourself and start positioning yourself. This is where you'll realize you don't need more credentials. You need more courage, more clarity. And that's when the business starts to work. Now, if this helped you, subscribe to the channel. I post new videos every week to help you grow a business that gets clients, makes a difference, and actually works.